Myself, you successfully hit spreadsheet 17 times, so now you get the grand prize of doing it all over again. Ahoy! In this video I'm gonna talk about what RPyS was first going to be like when I started making it, and why it is no longer going down that path. Basically everything I am going to talk about in this video is already obsolete, so if you stay it's going to be more for me than for the game itself. First of all, it is worthy of note that I had zero personal experience with TTRPGs when I first caved into the brainworms and started making RPyS. I am now in a Pathfinder 2 campaign, been so for a while already, and this perspective has certainly been helpful, but most of what I am going to show you now hails from before I joined that campaign. Alright, so the first obsolete mechanic I wanna talk about, dynamic levels. My first incessant thoughts were not about TTRPGs specifically, they were more geared towards video game RPGs. The possibility of staying in easy areas to grind like crazy to make the next part of the game trivial has harmed my enjoyment of games like Pokemon, Dragon Quest and Earthbound, so often I think about how this could be fixed in video games. In some games, such as Mario RPGs, there is a very well calculated amount of non-random encounters that will naturally get you to the recommended level if you defeat more or less everything in your way. Others like Persona impose limits on how long or how many times you can go grind between each boss, a very cool approach in my opinion. What I've never seen and I am very interested in is a game where you lose experience over time, so if you are low level it is very easy to gain experience faster than you lose it, but eventually you are going to reach a point of equilibrium where the only way to increase your level any further is to fight tougher enemies. This is what I initially wanted with RPyS. On top of that, characters would have their abilities divided into three types: physical, thaumaturgical and mobility. Each of these would level up and down independently, meaning that if you want to push your mobility to the absolute limit, you would have to sacrifice training time for the other skills, thus letting them fall back to a lower level. I soon realized that in a TTRPG this is both very difficult and not really all that necessary to do. So as you can see, the very first idea that I got for this project is also the very first idea that got scrapped. Up next, we are going to look at the insanity of my old spreadsheets. Alright, this fucking mess here. Honestly, it's not even worth your time. It has some things I want to talk about, but they will appear again later. Moving on. Okay, this bastard here. This is from when I actually got serious and decided to try to use Excel to document the rules. This is basically the first draft of the game. I was still trying to do dynamic levels here, which you can tell because of these columns here, XP loss per day. Finishing this spreadsheet gave me some peace of mind, for a while, but eventually that peace of mind ended, so I had to come back to the spreadsheet to continue working on it. The problem was that I could not make heads nor tails out of it, so I had to redo it entirely better. This is that remade version. Basically the same information, plus a little bit more, but presented much better. It looks nicer and it is better organized. Let's break it down bit by bit. This block here indicates the body's properties, how much HP it's got, how much it needs to eat every day, how much weight it can carry, which then does math bullshit with the settings gravity expressed in G to tell you how much mass the character can carry. Do you remember that horrible mathematical formula I showed you on the previous video? This is what that's for, to determine the basic amount of weight that a character can carry. At this stage of development, I wanted a lot of the character's properties to be determined procedurally. You tell the spreadsheet how tall, muscular and limb-numbered, I guess, your character is, and it spits out the character's health, the base damage, the movement speed. I wanted it to be this way so that players could make new homebrew species that were objectively made with the same criteria as all the other species in the game, but it wasn't worth it. It's better to just choose these attributes arbitrarily and hope that it's balanced. That grey and blue stuff to the right is mostly for indicating how good the character's perception is. More about it in a future video. This next thing is for movement distance. It has these two more here, because you can have a character with, for example, 6 tentacles and sometimes you will use 2 to hold items and 4 for running, but other times you want to hold a lot of stuff, so you will use only 2 tentacles for running. That will have an effect on your mobility, especially your movement distance. So this block is essentially for keeping track of which limbs are being used for what. Also here you can see that the first time that you move within a round it doesn't cost action points, and then you spend action points to move more, but each time that you move less extra distance. I found that to be needlessly complicated, so the way that it works now is that each extension in movement is always the same, but the cost in action points increases. About all that stuff with the limbs, I still want to implement it, but I have to completely overhaul it. I do not know what it's going to look like. This here is for determining if a weapon is too heavy for a character to use, also procedural, also obsolete. Moving on. This here is for calculating how far thrown objects go, and how much damage they do if they hit. The whole throwing attacks thing is a mess right now, so moving on. Basic stats tracker. Hunger and sleep tracker, do not starve your character or you get debuffs, also need to rework this. This is for tracking levels and experience, still from when it was meant to go both up and down. You can see physical, magical, now renamed to thaumaturgical, and mobility there, but what's that about thermal, solid, kinetic and electric over there? Those are the settings, different types of magic. Your expertise in each could also go up and down. Night works more like feats and skill training in D&D. More about it in a future video. This didn't go anywhere. More leveling garbage. It says track money right there. Take a wild fucking guess what this is for. Oh great heavens, I intended to track the weight of individual coins? Well, I mean, if I can do it by myself without bothering the player. Okay, we're done with that card spreadsheet from hell. Now let's look at this card spreadsheet from Naraka. This is from much later. Characters were no longer meant to level up and down, and instead of having separate physical, thaumaturgical and mobility levels, they have a single level and each skill just improves at a different rate. The maximum level is 32, at maximum level the skill's statistic is twice as much as it was at first level. These numbers here at the bottom are the growth values, an indication of how much the stat is going to be worth at level 1, and therefore how much it is going to be worth as it increases. At this stage of development, different stats need completely different growth value ranges. For example, 60 is amazing for attack and defense, but fucking dog shit for willpower, for which the average is 100. Meanwhile, agility, which would later be renamed to initiative, can't even be greater than 2.25. Oh yeah, that too, some of these can have decimal values. Suffice to say, I have completely overhauled this. Now all growth values go from 6 to 12 for all stats, and the maximum level is 12. As for what those colors mean, next video. Okay, enough of that card spreadsheet from Naraka. Now let's look at this card spreadsheet for the Nether, Minecraft. This is the damage calculator. You put the character's properties on the left and you get the results on the right. The first column is the statistic, then a bonus to the statistic, then the sum of the bonus and the statistic, then the stat total divided by 10, then the score? What even is the score? Why do we have the statistic divided by 10? What is all of this for? How is it different? Basically, these are all residues from different systems that didn't go anywhere. Basically, the score was based on the growth value, which never changed, whereas the stat divided by 10 would grow over time because the stat itself would grow with each level. And dividing by 10 was necessary to turn huge numbers such as, for example, 400 into something more manageable. Moving on to the calculation section. Damage calculation works differently depending on if you attack with a melee weapon, range attack, magic, your spectre, the yo-yo stand. It also matters whether you are attacking a physical target or another spectre. Aside from the specific damage calculation formulas that you do not really get to see here, this is mostly still the same. So I am only going to talk to you about this thing here, the contest visualization matrix. For the record, this is not a mechanic, it's just a tool for visualizing a mechanic that is still present in the game. During an attack, both the attacker and the defender have to roll a d6. This matrix shows every possible combination of those two dice and whether that results in a success or failure. See how as I increase the attacker's accuracy, the blue area on the matrix gets larger and larger. The more cells have this blue area, the greater the chance of a critical success. And that would be all I have to say for this video. About 8 minutes of talking about spreadsheets. Is this what you wanted? Anyways, see you in the next video. In it I will talk about the general mechanics and formulas the game is currently using. Yes, that video will also have spreadsheets. It is worthy of note that I had zero personal experience with TTRPGs when I first gave to the brainworms and started making RPyS. ¡Tu puta madre! ¡Joder!